Well, good evening. I would tell you to open your Bibles to Genesis 1:1, but you probably know that, so probably none of us will have to turn there tonight. Again, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm so excited for you for your summer series, and I'm really excited about this lesson. I'm excited about the theme that you have, which is a shadow of things to come, and I don't know, it seems like every church around the area is talking about the Old Testament now. It just seems to go in like we all got the same bug. And as soon as we get done with Romans and 2 Corinthians, one of those, we're going to be doing a study of the God of the Old Testament in Bremerton, so I'm looking forward to that. Over the course of the last several years, I presented several lessons on a topic that's called kanji. Kanji is the ancient language of China and Japan. And I've done these lessons at Bremerton, I've done them other places, and we use them a lot in China because we can teach the Chinese people about God and about the first 11 chapters of Genesis from their own language. And kanji is a pictographic, ideographic language. It captures the ideas and pictures by using these symbols, especially in the ancient form. And because at Genesis chapter 11, God separated the peoples by creating all of these languages, that shared history of all mankind, every human being on the earth had the same shared history from Genesis 1 through 11. And they took that knowledge with them. And so they used that knowledge to be the basis also of this language. I'll give you an example of that. This is the kanji radical for man. And when you add the kanji radical for a tree with fruit, and you put that together in the Chinese language, that word means naked in Chinese. Now, does that make sense at all to you? That a man and a tree with fruit is naked unless you know about Genesis 3? That when they ate that fruit, that's when they found out they were naked? Chinese people don't even know that. So you show them that, and then you show them in the Bible where it says that, and they come to understand, wow, the Bible and Christianity is not a Western religion. It's Asian, it's Eastern. So as I was doing that, I came across some more information. And so there are 3 other ideographic or pictographic languages, ancient languages that we know about. Obviously, we have the kanji. We also have Egyptian, which you're familiar with, the hieroglyphics. We have Mesopotamian, which is, oh, that's very nice to have that back there. I don't get a crick in my neck this way. Which is the cuneiform, and then finally there's Jewish. Well, I never knew that Hebrew was originally an ideographic, pictographic language. When I looked at Hebrew, I thought somebody took a chicken, dipped their feet in ink, and let them run across the page, because it made no sense to me at all. And so the more I got into that, I recognized that the whole study of linguistics and of languages is fascinating to me. And I think it should be a part of the apologetics of the Bible. Because where did all the languages come from? Now, if you ask any linguist, you go to any college, any major university you want to in this country and talk to their linguistic professors, and they'll say, we don't know. We don't know where they came from. We kind of think, it started out with grunts and whistles, from animal sounds and stuff like that. And so they just say, we don't know. But every language that you see in the world appears fully formed. There's no evolution to it at all. The phonology of how things sound, the morphology with regards to how the words are formed, that we add an S to make things plural for us. As we'll see a little bit later, the Hebrew adds the letter M, mim, to make plurals. You have syntax, which is the grammatical way and the order in which things are done. I was talking about that at dinner tonight. We would never say, throw my horse over the fence some hay, because we would immediately think we need to throw the horse over the fence instead of throw the horse that's over the fence, throw him some hay. So we have a way of putting that together. And then there's the pragmatics. I should have been going all through this here. There we go. The pragmatics, which is the organization of language, which is what we're having right now. I'm getting to speak and you're not. Or when we're having a conversation, we take turns. And that's just part of that. Now, we know where languages came from because we believe Genesis 11. Okay? So, as I said before, ancient Hebrew was also ideographic and pictographic. When I say it's pictographic, then we have a sign that is related to a thing. So it's, a house or something like that is going to go along with that. Ideographic is an idea and a thing relationship, or a sign relationship. And ours is a word, sign word. So, we form letters together and they form a word. So the lesson tonight, and that bolded letter wasn't included in the title, because I'm not going to understand. You didn't want to print it on legal size. But I'm talking about the gospel of Jesus revealed not in just Genesis, but in the Hebrew of Genesis 1, Genesis 1:1. And in fact, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And let me just give you a little caveat here. I'm not Hebrew. I'm not fluent in Hebrew. I don't play Hebrew on TV, either speaking or writing. So what I'm presenting tonight, while not scholarly, linguistically speaking, I still hope it's going to be astounding to you, because it really was to me. And in fact, I want to just look at the first 3 Hebrew words in Genesis 1:1. Now, those show up in 5 English words. The 5 English words are, in the beginning, God created. But the first 3 we'll look at, and again, the syntax is different, so we'll be looking at them in a different order than what we're seeing them in English. So what I have here in my notes is buckle up, because we got a lot to cover here, and I hope it will be interesting to you. I'm still fascinated by it. So I want to begin by giving you some general background on Hebrew. Hebrew is written and read right to left. You can see that up there, right? You can all read that. I'll fix that for you. And that's backwards for us. We read left to right. And I want to just make this comment here, and that is that I believe that Hebrew is the language of God. And the reason I say that is because that's the language God chose to reveal himself in. That's the language that he used his finger to write those 10 commandments in. He didn't do it in any other language but Hebrew. And so that gives it to me some significance in the beginning. But getting back to the left and right, there's a lot of things that, as you're reading through the Old Testament, that seem backwards to Western culture. God, when he started days, as you're reading through Genesis 1, it says evening and morning. We don't do that. We go midnight to midnight. Evening and morning was the first day. When God counts off the year and the months, he does it by the moon. We do it by the sun and our circle around the sun. So they have 28-day months, and we have a jumble that we have to throw a leap year in every once in a while. I don't know why that is. I don't know why we've changed everything. Why our Western culture just doesn't go along with biblical time and all of that. Anyway, that's free. There was no charge for that. So I want to begin by looking at the Hebrew alphabet. And it's a word, by the way, that comes from Hebrew. Those are the first 2 letters in the Hebrew language, Aleph and Bet. I'm not sure if it was, because we have an alphabet, but that's also Alpha and Beta, which is in Greek. But that's where we're starting. There are 22 letters. Let me go back here. 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And if you want to know a quick way to remember that, is look at the book of Lamentations. Lamentations is a book that every verse starts with the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's like Psalm 119 that has sections that start with it. And so chapters 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 all have 22 verses in it. So it goes through the first word, and every verse starts with the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then for whatever reason, in the third chapter, he goes through the alphabet 3 times because there's 66 verses in that. So what I'm going to do, and they're up there now for you, is I'm going to go through really quickly and pronounce each of these Hebrew letters. We are going to be reading right to left, from you, right to left. And so we're starting, does this have a laser on it? No, I just turned it off. We're going to be starting here and going that way and coming back and going this way. You can probably figure it out from that side what I'm going to do. So we begin with Aleph. And Aleph is oftentimes silent in the Hebrew language, but if it's sounded out at all, it's going to be ah, like dad. Beit is the B, as in boy, and that's pretty easy to remember. Gimel is G, as in good, not G as in general, but G sound. Dalet is the fourth one over there, and it's D, as in door, okay? Hey is next. It's spelled H-E-I or H-E-Y. It is like our H in English, and it's silent when it's at the end of a word. Many times like ours, like hallelujah, has a H on the end. That's silent. The next letter is Vav, as in victory. And there are other middle sounds when it's placed in other places, but we're not teaching Hebrew in general here or in detail here, so I'm not going to worry about that. The next one is Zion, and it's spelled Z-A-I-N or Z-A-Y-E-N, and it's a Z like in zebra, and it sounds like Zion, lovely Zion. Now the next one is Het, and I'll use this one over here. It's this one right here. We don't have a sound like that in English. It's a really good throat clearing sound. Het, and like the German has ach, and the Scottish has lach, and it's way back in the back of your throat. Luckily for me, none of het does not show up in any of the first 3 words in Genesis 1:1. The next one is tet, and it's T as in tango. And then you have yud, and it's spelled Y-O-D, but it's Y as like in yellow, but it rhymes with wood. So you say yud. Then you have kaf, and that's K as in kangaroo, but it's also, and as I have it up there, I'm pretty sure I have it with a Q. Is that right? Quaf. And again, it has that throat clearing cough when you do it, like you're coughing, actually. The next one is lamed, and it's L as in lucky, and it's pronounced like llama, only you're saying lamed. The next one is mem, and it's M as like in Mary, and it's written differently when it's closed up. When it's at the end of the word, it doesn't have this in it. It's more closed. But again, I'm not trying to teach you the Hebrew alphabet here. And it's mem like in membrane. It's the same sound. The next one is nun, N-U-N, and it's like in book or wood, and n as in November, so it's nun. Then you have samek, same as S as in Sahara, with the ending having that throaty sound again, so a samach. Okay? I don't think the Jews have throat problems. They certainly don't have congestion. The next letter is ayin, and it's, again, a letter that's like aleph. It's silent most of the time, but when you're pronouncing it, it's like your I is in something. It's I-N. Then we have pay, which is the P as in pear, and it's pronounced pay, like you're paying a bill. Sometimes it's F as in fox, but again, that's, throw that away. You don't need to remember that. Tzaddik begins like the sound at the end of pants and nuts. It's that TS sound at the end. And sometimes it doesn't have a K. When it does, it's tzadach. If it doesn't have the K, it's tzada. Here's quaf. which also has the sound, and actually it's kuf. It's the sound of K in kangaroo, but it's, again, rhymes with roof. Resh, which is kind of almost a German kind of, again, rash. And it's the sound of an R, but more guttural. It's further back in your throat. And then I'm sure you've seen this one, Shin or Sin. Sometimes in the back of your Bibles and your maps, you'll have the wilderness of Sin. Sometimes it says the wilderness of Shin. Sometimes it says the wilderness of Sur, and sometimes it says the wilderness of Shur. It's the same letter. And if you're probably a native Hebrew speaker, you know whether there's supposed to be a S sound or an SH sound. But they're spelled the same. Sometimes they just put a dot in there to make a distinguishing mark for people like us that don't know. And then the 22nd and last letter is the letter Tav, and it's the T like in tango. Now, just for your information, I have added the numerical values of each letter, just like Roman numerals. The Hebrew also had numbers that were associated with their letters. And so you can see they could go up to 400. And probably they did something to go beyond that. So getting back to Hebrew, like kanji, every Hebrew letter has a picture that is associated with it. And I'm not going to give you the picture of all 22 letters. I know that you're relaxing now about that. I'm just going to give the ones that we're going to be looking at in Genesis 1:1, and some of those are used more than once. And so as I give you these, I'm going to give you the modern view of it, which is all of the letters that you just saw were all the modern letters, the ones that they would use. And if you were reading Hebrew, something written in Hebrew today, those would be the letters they were using. And then I'm also going to give you the ancient, which is actually the pictograph, the ideograph that makes that up. And then I'm also going to give you the meaning of that. So I'll just begin with the first two letters here. Here's Aleph. And Aleph is written this way in ancient Hebrew. And the meaning of that is ox. And if you look at that Aleph, can you see an ox? Kind of got his head turned sideways there and his horns are sticking out. And so that's how that is. In fact, if I take that ancient A and I turn it up, it looks like our A. Okay, so that's Aleph. The second one is Bet. And Bet looks like this. It looks like a tent, and in fact, that's what it means, is a tent. If I tell you the city Bethel, it's the house of God. Bethany, the house of, I can't remember what Bethany, Bethlehem, if I was going to say it in Hebrew, Bethlehem, it would be the house of bread. And in fact, if I take that Bet and I put it on its side, it looks like our B, our lowercase b. So even at this point, it's kind of interesting to me because you can see God's hand in this. So when I put Aleph and Bet together, and again, you're reading from right to left there, that spells Abba. And Abba is Father, because Abba is the strength of the tent. The strength of the tent, the strength of the house is the Father. And so, listen, I think that if you learned the Hebrew letters and the pictures that go with it, you could probably almost read your Hebrew Bible just by picking out those letters. And interesting to me as well is that Aleph and Bet are the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so at the beginning of the alphabet is the Father. The Father's there. When you start writing it out, he's there before you. So let's look at another example. We've already seen Bet. It's the tent or the house. And let's add the letter Resh. And Resh is looks like this. And I'm going to give you another, not a well done thing, but Resh means head. And you can, it looks like a stick figure head looking to the left or right there. And so it sounds like R, and in fact, if you turn it around, it looks like R lowercase r. Exactly like it, in fact. So here with Bet Resh, reading it, we have Bar. And Bar means son, as in Barabbas, the son of the father is what his name means. Barnabas, son of exhortation. And so in God's economy, the head of the tent, the strength of the tent is the father. The head of the tent, though, was the son. And remember when Abraham sent his servant to get a wife for Isaac? And as you're reading in Genesis 24, Bethuel is there, but the guy who's doing all the talking is Laban. The son is the one who's making the deal and running the show. And that to me makes perfect sense, because in Matthew 28 verse 18, the son says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth, because he is the head of the house. He's the head of the tent. So that's just a real quick primer on how Hebrew works. And I'll tell you what, the further you get into Hebrew, I think almost the whole language points to Jesus. And it certainly starts out that way. And so we're going to look at the first 3 words of Genesis 1, which, if I'm reading it right to left, it's Bereshit bara Elohim et maya hashemayim ve'et haaretz, which is, in the beginning created God the heavens and the earth. And so if I'm looking at, and we're going to start with Bereshit. Each letter of Bereshit, we start with the Bet, and then Resh, Aleph, Shin or Sin, Yud, and Tav. That's the Hebrew word for Bereshit. And the word begins with Bet, not with Aleph, not with El, not with God. El is God in Hebrew, as in my name, Daniel, which is, my judge is God. Or Nathaniel, which is gift of God. Or Eliezer, with the L at the beginning, God is my help. So God begins here with Bet, and you'll see why in a minute. And remember that Bet is the tent, it's the house. The second letter is Resh, which is the head. And we've already seen that when I put Bet and Resh together, that gives me the Son. I have the Son right there. And so God begins his revelation in Genesis 1:1. While the alphabet starts with the Father, Genesis 1:1 starts with the Son, with the first 2 letters of Bereshit. And everything is going to lead to Christ. And so then the next letter is Aleph. And Aleph is the thing that stands for God. So the first 3 letters of Bereshit is Son of God. In the first 3 letters of the Hebrew Bible, we are introduced to the Son of God. Now, thank you. It was either going to bomb or it was going to go over well. And so I'm really excited that you love that. So the next letter, and I should have put that up there, is Shin. And Shin kind of looks like a W. It actually stands for teeth. It stands for destruction. In fact, when you put these 2 together, when you put Aleph and Shin together, it's Aish is the Hebrew word, and it stands together. That means fire. So when you put God and destruction together, you have fire. And when you see God and fire, the first time is in Exodus. And so you see the power of God coming out of the burning bush, but you also see the mercy of God, because what happened to the bush? Nothing. It was not destroyed. Okay? I would just get sidetracked and go off on all kinds of tangents here. We got to keep going here. So the next letter is Yud. And it's the picture of an arm with a hand on the end of it. Yud is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. When Jesus said not one jot or one iota of the law would fail, he said, in Hebrew it's yud. It's yud. And that's in Matthew 5:18. God's name, Yahweh, starts with yud. So when you think about God, the Almighty God who created everything, he begins his name with the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It's also the first letter in Jerusalem and in Yeshua, for Joshua. And this yud speaks of deeds. It speaks of actions that are taken. The last letter, Tav, in the original Hebrew, it looks just like a cross, a T, a lowercase t for us. And you would say, okay, put your Tav here if you were signing a document. And so you would put that, if you couldn't write, you would put that there. Of course, when you look at that, you think the cross, okay? So let me just read the story that's contained in these first 6 letters of the first word in Bereshit. We have the Son of God is destroyed by his own hand on the cross. And that's the gospel. That's the gospel in the very first word of ancient Hebrew in Genesis 1:1. Now, at this point, I'm falling over in my seat. You know, I can't believe it. And what it tells me here is there's no human being that wrote this. And this is another reason, I'll mention it again, why I think Hebrew is God's language. He's revealing himself in the very letters of the words, not just in the words, but in the letters of the words. And there's an underlying meaning there that if you're Hebrew and you were looking at that, you'd see that right off the bat. Okay. So let's quickly look at the last 2 words. It won't take me near as long to go through these as it did the others. So the second word is bara. And bara means created, or it can mean fattened in the sense of you're preparing an animal to sacrifice, and so the fatted calf would go into here. It's used in Genesis 1 and verse 21. It's used in verse 27, used in verse 21 of the sea creatures that God created them. It's used of man in verse 27. Let's create man in our image. And it's a verb that's only used in the Bible with reference to God. He is the creator. He is the one who has bara. So the letters of bara are bet and resh and aleph. Same 3 letters that we started Bereshit with. And so what that is, again, is the Son of God. So if you miss the Son of God in the first word of Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew, here it is again. I mean, it's just brought right back to the front again. And it is the word that's translated created. John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. He's the creator. The Son is the creator. Paul reiterates that or echoes that in Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 17. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, or all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Now, I could know that just by looking at the second word in Hebrew of Genesis 1. So the third word, I just gave you those passages. The second word is a word that you're probably familiar with. It's Elohim. It's the word for God, and it's plural. And listen, there are so many words in the Hebrew for God. In English, we have basically 3. We have God. We have Lord when it's all capitalized in your Bibles, which is Yahweh. And then we have Lord, Adonai, which is the lowercase. There are probably 50 different names for God in the Old Testament. So the letters of Elohim are Aleph, because I'm reading right to left, Aleph, Lamed, He, Yud, and Mem. And this is how they look, Aleph, Lamed, He, Yud, and I made that smaller so it would be right, and then Mem, and Mem, because it's at the end, would be closed up, but you're not going to ding me on that. All of you that are Hebrew scholars already knew that. I wasn't telling you anything. So, Mem is always placed at the end of a word to pluralize it. If I have a cherub, if I have more than one cherub, they're called cherubim. Same with seraphim, Nephilim, Anakim. All of these peoples, they put the mem on the end of it. And Elohim also has the M. So we're talking about more than one. It's a plural noun. There's more than one person that's involved in that. So now let's look at the pictographs that go along with this. So Aleph is the ox. Again, that stands for God. The L of Elohim, which makes me wonder, is that why the Israelites made a golden calf in Exodus 32 to represent God? Because Aleph is an ox. It's the strength of the ox. In fact, in Exodus 32:1 it says, come make us Elohim. And so what Aaron did, as you all know, he just threw in stuff out and out came a calf, magically. But there was only one calf that came out, but they asked for plural. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. Lamed is the shepherd's staff. And when you and I think of a shepherd's staff, we look at it this way. We can see the shepherd out there with his staff and his crook. The way Lamed is written, it's a staff that's being used. You got your sheep in the briars and you can't get out, you stick that thing in there and put the crook around his neck and pull him out, or in a ditch and underneath his leg and pull him out. So Lamed is actually a shepherd's staff that's in use. It's not just a prop. And so Lamed is the symbol for shepherd itself. And together, when I take Aleph and Lamed, I get El, as we talked about, which means the strong shepherd. He's the one who's watching over his flock. He's watching over Israel. And just like Emmanuel is God with us. And so that's those two put together. The third is He. He is the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And its pictograph is like a man who's looking up to receive some blessing, or he's saying, behold. It's the idea is, and the picture is of an open window and of blessings flowing in, and the person sees that, and so some blessing is being revealed to him in He. Just as again, little freebie here, the number 5 in Hebrew is associated with blessing. It just has that. From Genesis chapter 5 and verse 1 all the way through chapter 6 and verse 8, you will read the name of Noah 5 times. The 5th time is it says that Noah found grace in the eyes of God. And so there's the grace. Even more interesting to me is if you take Noah in Hebrew and you turn it around, it's the Hebrew word for grace. These are just little freebies that I'm giving you here. So He is also at the beginning of words, and it's the definite article. And so you have Hashamayim, the H there, the He there that you see on the right is the heavens. And you see Haaretz, the earth. And so that He can also just be the. All right? Then we have Yud. And Yud, again, is the arm and hand. There's work being done. There's action that's being taken. And so it's an active kind of a word. And then the last one is Mem. And the ancient writing of this looks like a zigzag line, which you can see our letter M in that. But when you add the rest of Mem, it changes. it makes it look like water, the waves of the water. And if you put Yud and Mem together, you have sea. You have the water. And actually has the idea, you've heard of Yom Kippur. It's the day of something. And so the Yom is the end of the day when the sun goes down over the sea, is the actual idea there. And of course, God puts his hands on the water and he controls the seas. And so he is the God of the sea. And you can see that as well. Now, this is what really amazes me. Because, and I can see the inspiration of God and the wisdom of God in choosing Elohim as his name. So if I'm again reading from right to left, I have God and I have shepherd and I have revealed gifts, the blessings of some sort of acting and leading, and then I have the waters there. And it seems to me that David took the name of God. He took it letter, word by letter, word, and he wrote it out like this. The Lord, that's Aleph, is my shepherd. I shall not want. He's giving me these gifts. He's making me lie down in green pastures, so his action, he's also leading me beside the still waters. Psalm 23, 1 and 2 is actually David writing a poem about the name of God, letter by letter. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. And you look at that and you say, oh, that's Elohim. That's Elohim. All right. So, listen, my view of this is if this much is revealed in the first three words of the Hebrew Bible, what's the rest of the verse say? What's the rest of the book telling us? What's the rest of the Bible? What secrets are in there? And who could possibly think that this is the product of just a human mind? It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it's the glory of man to dig it out, and so you all got to be kings today as we dug this out. And again, that's why I just think that Hebrew is God's language. Not that they're speaking Hebrew in heaven, but when it came to revealing himself and choosing a language of all the ones that he created, because he created every one of them, he decided to use this language to reveal his will. He decided to use this language to reveal himself. And we serve such an awesome God who has woven and revealed himself, not just in straightforward telling us about it. He's in the words. He's in the letters in the words. And all that does for me is increases my strength that this is God's word. That's why I always said it should be apologetics. Linguistics should be apologetics. And the key figure is that the Word became flesh. The Word became flesh and died for us. So when you start thinking about a shadow of things to come, listen, there are no longer shadows than the one we started with tonight. It casts the longest shadow because it's from the first word. The first letters is telling us about Jesus Christ. Okay. I thank you for your reaction, because I think I did this one other time and I thought that people were asleep. And I said, really? Do you not see this? But I should know. You guys are great, and that's why I love to come here. And I hope that you'll just let that sink in a little bit. I know it's quick, but it's amazing. It's amazing. And thank you for your attention. I guess we're going to have another song.